I'm Sarah, 32, and I thought I knew exactly where I stood in my family, until my brother's wedding day shattered every assumption I'd held about blood loyalty. There I was, dressed in my best navy suit, arriving at the reception venue only to discover my assigned seat wasn't at the family table, wasn't even in the main dining room, but tucked away in the kitchen corner like some unwanted afterthought. What happened next would tear apart 20 years of family relationships and cost them more than they ever imagined possible. Before we dive into this story of ultimate family karma, I'm curious, have you ever been deliberately humiliated by your own family? What do you think happened when I discovered the real reason behind that kitchen seat? Drop your predictions below, hit that like button if you're ready for some serious family drama, and don't forget to subscribe because this revenge story has twists you won't see coming. Trust me, you'll want to see how this ends. Growing up, Marcus was always the golden boy. 3 years older than me, he could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. While I busted my ass through college, working 3 part-time jobs to pay my way through business school, Marcus coasted through community college on mom and dad's dime. When I graduated summa cum laude with my MBA, the family celebration lasted exactly one dinner. When Marcus barely scraped by with his associate's degree, they threw him a weekend-long party. The pattern continued into our professional lives. I clawed my way up from entry-level positions, eventually founding my own successful marketing consultancy. My company, Pinnacle Strategies, had grown to 30 employees and annual revenue of $4.2 million. Meanwhile, Marcus bounced between sales jobs, never lasting more than 18 months anywhere before either getting fired or quitting when things got too stressful. But here's what really stung: every family gathering became a Marcus Appreciation Society. "Oh, Marcus is so charming with clients," Mom would gush. "He has such natural charisma." Dad would nod approvingly, adding, "Sales is really the backbone of any business, you know." They'd turn to me with these patronizing smiles and say things like, "Your little marketing thing is nice too, honey." My little marketing thing was paying for their anniversary cruise, Marcus's rent 3 months running, and would soon be bankrolling a significant portion of his wedding expenses. But somehow, in their twisted family hierarchy, I remained the supporting character in Marcus's starring role. The engagement announcement came with typical family fanfare. Marcus had proposed to Jessica, a dental hygienist he'd been dating for 8 months. The engagement party was elaborate, expensive, and funded largely by our parents, who mysteriously found money they claimed not to have when I'd asked for help with my business startup years earlier. During the engagement party, I overheard a conversation that should have warned me about what was coming. Jessica's mother, Linda, was discussing wedding plans with my mother. "We just want to make sure the important people are properly honored," Linda said. "Family hierarchy matters so much at these events." "Oh, absolutely," Mom agreed. "Marcus deserves to have his special day be perfect. We'll make sure everything is arranged appropriately." I thought appropriately meant everyone would be treated with basic respect and dignity. I was about to learn exactly how wrong I could be. The wedding planning process revealed more red flags than a communist parade. When I offered to help with marketing materials for the wedding, save the dates, programs, table cards, Jessica politely declined, saying they wanted to keep things simple. But when Marcus's college buddy offered to design everything for free, and did an objectively terrible job, suddenly Jessica was full of praise for his artistic vision. When I suggested several high-end caterers I'd worked with professionally, offering to leverage my business relationships for better pricing, Mom waved me off. "We don't want to impose on your work connections, dear." Yet when Marcus recommended his friend's cousin who ran a struggling catering business, everyone acted like he'd discovered the next Wolfgang Puck. The bachelor party was another slap in the face. Marcus planned a weekend trip to Vegas, complete with shows, gambling, and bottle service at expensive clubs. As his only sibling and the family member with the most disposable income, I naturally assumed I'd be included in the planning if not the financing. Instead, I found out about it through social media posts from his friends. When I confronted Marcus about being excluded, he shrugged it off with his typical charm. "Oh, you know how it is, Sarah. The guys just wanted to keep it small and low-key." Low-key, apparently, meant renting a suite at the Bellagio and spending more in one weekend than most people make in 3 months. But I kept telling myself it would all be worth it when the wedding day arrived. This was my brother, after all. We'd shared the same childhood, the same family struggles, the same dreams of making our parents proud. Surely, when it came to his actual wedding day, family bonds would triumph over whatever weird dynamics had been building up. I even went out of my way to make the day special for him. I arranged for a surprise champagne service for the bridal party getting ready. I coordinated with the photographer to capture some special moments he'd mentioned wanting. I spent hours helping Jessica's younger sister with her maid of honor speech, offering professional presentation coaching to make sure it would be memorable. My wedding gift to them was substantial. A check for $10,000 and a weekend getaway to Napa Valley that I'd arranged through my business connections, complete with wine tastings and a stay at a boutique resort. I'd also quietly paid for the wedding favors when I overheard Jessica's parents stressing about going over budget. So when I arrived at the reception venue that Saturday evening, wearing my best navy suit and carrying a heart full of genuine happiness for my brother, I was completely unprepared for what awaited me. The hostess checked her seating chart twice, looked at me with confusion, then led me not to the family table prominently positioned near the head table, not even to a table with family friends or Marcus's colleagues, but through the main dining room, past the kitchen doors, to a small table tucked in the far corner of the food prep area. "I think there's been some mistake," I said, certain this had to be an error. The hostess consulted her chart again. "Sarah Mitchell, table 12, she confirmed. Kitchen overflow seating." That's when I saw the other people at my assigned table, the catering staff who were grabbing quick bites between service rounds. I stood there for a full minute, staring at that table in the kitchen corner, trying to process what I was seeing. The catering staff looked as confused as I felt. One of them, a kind older woman wearing a service apron, gestured to an empty chair. "You can sit here, honey, but are you sure you're supposed to be back here? You look like family." That's when it hit me, this wasn't a mistake. This was deliberate. I walked back through the dining room with fresh eyes, really looking at the seating arrangements for the first time. Table 1 held Marcus's new in-laws, positioned right next to the head table where Marcus and Jessica sat like royalty. Table 2 seated our parents alongside Jessica's aunts and uncles. Tables 3 and 4 contained Marcus's college friends and their dates. Table 5 held his work colleagues. And there, at table 6, I spotted them, Marcus's high school buddies, guys I barely knew, guys who hadn't spoken to him in years but who had somehow merited seats in the main dining room while his only sister got banished to eat with the catering staff. I needed answers, and I needed them immediately. I found Jessica's mother, Linda, near the bar, holding court with several other wedding guests. "Linda," I said, trying to keep my voice level, "I think there might be an error with the seating arrangements." She looked at me with perfectly feigned confusion. "Oh? What kind of error, dear?" "I'm seated in the kitchen," I said bluntly. "At table 12. With the catering staff." Linda's expression didn't change, but I caught a flicker of something, satisfaction, in her eyes. "Oh, that wasn't an error. We just had so many important people to accommodate in the main dining room. You understand, don't you? Being in business yourself, you know how these networking opportunities work." The casual cruelty of her tone made my stomach drop. "I'm Marcus's sister," I said, still hoping this was some twisted misunderstanding. "Of course you are," Linda replied smoothly. "And we appreciate everything you've done. It's just that Jessica has such a large extended family, and Marcus has so many professional connections that needed to be honored. We had to make some difficult choices about space allocation." Space allocation. Like I was a conference attendee they were shuffling around, not the groom's only sibling. That's when I saw my mother approaching, her face flushed with champagne and happiness. "Sarah. There you are. Have you found your seat yet?" "Mom," I said carefully, "did you know I was seated in the kitchen?" My mother's smile faltered for just a moment before returning full force. "Oh, well, you know how these things go." There were just so many people to fit in, and we knew you'd be understanding about it. You're always so flexible and accommodating. Accommodating. That word hit me like a slap. I realized that's exactly what I'd been my entire life, accommodating Marcus's needs, accommodating my parents' favoritism, accommodating everyone else's comfort while my own feelings came dead last. "Where is Marcus?" I asked, my voice probably sharper than it should have been. "Oh, he and Jessica are doing their rounds, greeting all the important guests," Mom said. Then, with devastating obliviousness, she added, "You'll catch up with him later, I'm sure." Later. After all the important people had their time with him. I excused myself and headed for the bathroom, needing a moment to collect my thoughts. In the hallway, I encountered Jessica's younger sister, Amy, who had always been friendly to me during the engagement period. "Sarah," she said brightly, then her expression grew confused. "Wait, why aren't you at table 2 with your parents?" "Good question," I replied. "Apparently I've been assigned to the kitchen." Amy's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, realization, and then something that looked like shame. "Oh no," she said softly. I thought Jessica was joking when she said that. Joking about what? Amy looked around nervously, as if checking for eavesdroppers. "Last week, during the final planning meeting, Mom suggested putting you at a back table because you don't have a +1 and they needed room for Dad's business partners." Jessica laughed and said maybe they should just put you in the kitchen since you're always so helpful behind the scenes. The words hit me like a physical blow. She was joking? I thought she was, Amy said quietly. But then Mom got this look on her face, like Jessica had just solved a puzzle. "They started talking about how it would actually work perfectly because you're so low maintenance and wouldn't cause drama about it." Low maintenance. There it was again, another way of saying I could be treated poorly because I'd never stood up for myself before. Amy grabbed my arm gently. "Sarah, I had no idea they actually went through with it. This is horrible. You should be at the family table." But I wasn't at the family table. I was in the kitchen. And suddenly, 20 years of similar slights came flooding back, being left out of family photos at my cousin's graduation because there wasn't enough room, having my birthday dinner moved so it wouldn't conflict with Marcus's work event, being asked to give up my childhood bedroom when Marcus moved back home after college because he needed the space more. I'd accommodated every single one of these moments, telling myself it was what good sisters do, what mature adults do, what family loyalty required. But standing in that hallway, I realized the truth: I hadn't been demonstrating love and loyalty. I'd been enabling a pattern of disrespect that had culminated in this ultimate humiliation. As I stood there processing this revelation, I heard familiar laughter coming from the main dining room. Through the doorway, I could see Marcus at table 1, regaling Jessica's father with some story that had the entire table in stitches. He looked so happy, so completely unburdened by any concern for where his sister might be or how she might be feeling. That's when I made my decision. If my family wanted to treat me like I was invisible, like my feelings and dignity were disposable, then I would give them exactly what they were asking for. I would disappear from their lives in ways they never expected. But first, I was going to find out exactly how deep this betrayal went. I didn't go back to the kitchen table. Instead, I positioned myself strategically near the entrance to the main dining room, where I could observe without being noticed. What I saw made my blood boil even more. At table 4, I recognized several faces: Marcus's college fraternity brothers, guys who had openly mocked my career choices during previous family gatherings. One of them, Brad, had actually told me at Christmas 2 years ago that marketing was just playing with pretty pictures and that real business happened in sales. Yet here he was, honored with premium seating while I ate with the wait staff. But it was table 7 that really caught my attention. Seated there were people I'd never seen before in my life, complete strangers who somehow merited spots in the main dining room over the groom's sister. I approached the table during a lull in conversation. "Hi, I'm Sarah, Marcus's sister," I said pleasantly to a middle-aged couple at the table. They looked at each other uncertainly. "Oh, hi," the woman replied. "We're the Hendersons. We live next door to Jessica's parents." Neighbors. They'd seated the neighbors in the main dining room while putting me in the kitchen. "How do you know Marcus and Jessica?" I asked, genuinely curious now. "Well, we don't really," the man admitted. "Linda invited us last week when she mentioned they had some extra space to fill. She said it was going to be such a lovely event." Extra space to fill. The phrase echoed in my head as I excused myself from their table. I needed more information, and I knew exactly where to get it. I found the wedding planner, a harried-looking woman named Patricia, checking items off her clipboard near the kitchen entrance. "Patricia, I'm Sarah Mitchell, Marcus's sister. I have a quick question about the seating arrangements." "Oh yes, table 12, she said immediately. That was a special request from the mother of the bride. She said you preferred to be near the kitchen because of your professional background in event planning." I blinked. My professional background is marketing and business consulting. Patricia looked confused, checking her notes. "Oh. Well, Mrs. Chen specifically said you'd requested to be seated where you could observe the service flow because you work in hospitality." Another lie. Linda had deliberately misrepresented my background to justify the seating assignment. But it got worse. She also mentioned, Patricia continued, that you'd volunteered to help coordinate with the catering staff if any issues arose during dinner service. "That's why we put you at table 12, so you'd be right there if we needed assistance." They hadn't just banished me to the kitchen, they'd essentially assigned me unpaid labor duties at my own brother's wedding. I thanked Patricia and walked outside to get some air and process this information. In the courtyard, I overheard a conversation that made everything crystal clear. Linda was talking to her sister near the garden fountain, their voices carrying in the quiet evening air. "I still can't believe you pulled it off," the sister was saying. "Getting Marcus's sister out of the way like that without any drama." "Oh, it was easier than I thought," Linda replied smugly. "She's so desperate to please everyone, so afraid of conflict. I knew if we framed it right, she'd just go along with it." "But wasn't she paying for part of the wedding?" Linda waved dismissively. "Some of the smaller things. Nothing we couldn't have managed without. Jessica was worried she might cause problems, you know, being successful and single at 32. We didn't want her drawing attention away from the bride." Drawing attention away from the bride. By existing. By being successful. By being single. Plus, Linda continued, Jessica felt like Sarah always tries to take over family events with her business connections and professional advice. This way, she can't network or show off or make everything about her career. I stood frozen behind a decorative pillar, listening to them discuss my character assassination with casual cruelty. They'd turned my professional success, the thing I was most proud of, into a reason to humiliate me. But Linda wasn't finished. "The best part is, she'll probably just sit there quietly and take it. That's what she's always done. Marcus said she never stands up for herself, never causes scenes. She'll suffer in silence and then go home and pretend everything's fine." Marcus had said that. My own brother had told his future in-laws that I was a pushover who could be treated however they wanted without consequences. That's when I realized this wasn't just about wedding seating arrangements. This was about a fundamental lack of respect for me as a person, orchestrated by people who saw my kindness as weakness and my accommodation as invitation for abuse. I pulled out my phone and opened my business contacts. I scrolled to a number I'd hoped never to use in anger, the direct line to Robert Chen, Linda's husband, who happened to be the CEO of Pacific Northwest Construction, one of my company's biggest clients. But I didn't call yet. First, I needed to understand the full scope of what I was dealing with. I went back inside and found Amy, Jessica's sister, who was looking increasingly uncomfortable as the evening wore on. "Amy, can I ask you something? And please be honest with me." She nodded, looking guilty. "How long have they been planning to seat me in the kitchen?" Amy's face crumpled. "Sarah, I feel so terrible about this. It started about 2 months ago. Jessica was stressing about the guest list, trying to fit everyone in. When your name came up, Mom suggested maybe you didn't need to be at a prime table because you don't have a boyfriend to bring. And then? Jessica said something about how you always make everything about business anyway, so you'd probably prefer to be somewhere you could network with the service industry. They started laughing about it, making jokes about how you'd fit right in with the catering staff because you're always trying to be helpful. The casual cruelty was breathtaking. They'd turned my professional success and helpful nature into punchlines, into reasons I deserved lesser treatment. Amy, who else knew about this? She looked even more miserable. Jessica told your brother last week. She said it would be better if he didn't mention it to you beforehand, that it would just cause unnecessary drama. Marcus agreed it was probably for the best. Marcus knew. My brother had known for a week that I would be humiliated at his wedding, and he'd said nothing. He'd let me show up in my best clothes, with expensive gifts and genuine excitement for his happiness, knowing full well what awaited me. That was the moment I stopped caring about maintaining family peace. That was the moment I decided that if my family wanted to play games with me, they were about to learn that I was much better at playing games than they ever imagined. I walked back to the kitchen area, sat down at table 12 with the catering staff, and pulled out my phone. The older woman in the apron, whose name I learned was Maria, offered me a plate of food. You know what, Maria, I said, accepting the plate with genuine gratitude, this might be the most honest interaction I've had with anyone here tonight. As I ate dinner with people who were strangers but treated me with more basic human decency than my own family had, I began making calls. The first was to my business partner, James, who answered despite it being a Saturday evening. Sarah? Everything okay? James, I need you to pull the Pacific Northwest construction file. All contracts, all ongoing negotiations, everything. Right now? It's your brother's wedding night. Trust me, I said, watching Marcus through the kitchen doorway as he laughed with his fraternity brothers. Right now is exactly the right time. As I sat in that kitchen corner, surrounded by the gentle bustle of hard-working catering staff who had shown me more kindness in 30 minutes than my family had in years, I felt something shift inside me. The hurt was still there, sharp and raw, but it was being rapidly overtaken by something else, a cold, calculated anger that demanded justice. Maria, the catering supervisor, had become my unexpected ally. Honey, she said, refilling my wine glass, in 30 years of working weddings, I've never seen family treated like this. This isn't right. No, I agreed, scrolling through my phone contacts, it isn't right. But it's about to become very expensive. James had sent me the Pacific Northwest construction file within minutes. Robert Chen's company wasn't just a client, they were our biggest client, representing $1.2 million in annual revenue for my company. More importantly, we were in the middle of negotiating a 3-year expansion contract worth $4.8 million that would establish my firm as their exclusive marketing partner for all West Coast operations. But here's what Linda Chen didn't know about her husband's business relationship with me: the contract wasn't just lucrative, it was critical. Pacific Northwest Construction was expanding into new markets, and their success depended heavily on the marketing strategies my team had developed. We weren't just another vendor to them, we were strategic partners whose work directly impacted their bottom line. I opened my laptop and began reviewing the contract terms. As the principal owner of Pinnacle Strategies, I had complete authority to terminate client relationships, especially when there were morality clauses involved. And coincidentally, our contract with Pacific Northwest Construction included a provision allowing either party to terminate the agreement if continuing the relationship would be detrimental to either company's reputation or business interests. You know, this whole situation has me thinking about family loyalty and business ethics. How far would you go if your own family humiliated you publicly? Would you risk $1 million business relationship to make a point? Drop a comment below and let me know where you think this is heading, because trust me, we're just getting started. And if you're enjoying this story of family karma in action, hit that like button, you're going to want to see how this revenge unfolds. While I worked, I kept one eye on the main dining room. The toasts were starting, and I watched my parents raise their glasses to celebrate their golden boy and his perfect new family. Neither of them had bothered to check on me even once. Marcus hadn't even looked toward the kitchen. That's when Jessica's maid of honor, her sister Amy, began her speech. I'd spent hours helping her craft it, offering professional presentation coaching to make sure it would be memorable. As I listened to her deliver the words I'd helped her write, praising Jessica's kindness and family values, the irony was so thick I almost choked on it. But the real knife twist came when Marcus stood to give his response speech. "I want to thank everyone who made this day special," he said, his voice carrying clearly to my kitchen corner. "My beautiful wife Jessica, of course. Our parents, who have supported us every step of the way. My groomsmen, who've been my brothers through everything." He went on to thank Jessica's family, the wedding party, even the venue staff. But not once did he mention his actual sister, sitting 20 feet away, who had contributed more to his wedding than almost anyone else in that room. The applause died down, and I made my decision. I opened my email and began typing. Subject: Notice of Contract Termination, Pacific Northwest Construction. Dear Robert, I hope you and your family are enjoying Jessica's wedding celebration. I'm writing to inform you that Pinnacle Strategies will be terminating our service contract, effective immediately. As per Section 12.3 of our agreement, either party may terminate this relationship when continuing would be detrimental to business interests. Unfortunately, recent events have made it clear that maintaining a professional relationship with your company would compromise my firm's values and standards. All work on current projects will cease as of Monday morning. Your team will receive detailed transition documents by end of business tomorrow, along with final invoicing for services rendered through today's date. The 3-year expansion contract currently under negotiation is hereby withdrawn from consideration. Best regards. Sarah Mitchell, CEO, Pinnacle Strategies. My finger hovered over the send button. This wasn't just about Robert Chen's company, this would have ripple effects throughout my business. Robert was well connected in the Portland business community. Other potential clients might question my stability or professionalism. I could lose referrals, reputation, maybe even other contracts. But then I looked up and saw Linda Chen at table 1, laughing with my parents, probably sharing more stories about how easily they'd managed to sideline the difficult sister without any consequences. I hit send. Immediately, I followed up with a second email to my entire team, marked urgent. All. Effective immediately, we are ceasing all work on Pacific Northwest construction accounts. Please secure all files and prepare transition documents. Emergency team meeting Monday at 7 a.m. This decision is final and non-negotiable. Sarah. Within minutes, my phone started buzzing with text messages from my senior staff. James called immediately. Sarah, what the hell is going on? You just nuked our biggest client on a Saturday night. I know exactly what I did, I said calmly, watching the celebration continue in the main dining room. And I know exactly why I did it. This is career suicide. That contract was going to set us up for the next 3 years. James, sometimes your integrity is worth more than money. What does integrity have to do with Robert Chen? He's been a model client. I looked toward table 1, where Robert sat obliviously next to his wife, completely unaware that his marketing budget had just evaporated. It's not about Robert. It's about his family's values and how they align with ours. There was a long pause. Sarah, you're scaring me. Are you having some kind of breakdown? On the contrary, I said, feeling calmer than I had all evening. I'm having a breakthrough. After ending the call, I composed one more email, this one to Marcus, sent from my personal account to his phone. Marcus. Congratulations on your wedding. I hope you and Jessica have a wonderful life together. I wanted you to know that I've just terminated Pinnacle Strategies' contract with Pacific Northwest Construction, effective immediately. This includes the $4.8 million expansion deal we were negotiating with Robert Chen, Jessica's father. I thought you should hear it from me first, since you'll probably be getting some interesting phone calls shortly. Your sister. Sarah. P.S. Thank you for the kitchen table. It provided excellent perspective. I hit send and immediately turned off my phone. Whatever chaos was about to erupt, I didn't want to hear it secondhand through angry phone calls and text messages. If my family wanted to discuss this situation with me, they could do it face to face. Maria appeared at my elbow with a fresh plate of wedding cake. You look like a woman who just made a big decision, she observed. The biggest one of my life, I confirmed, accepting the cake with gratitude. Good for you, honey. Sometimes people need to learn that actions have consequences. As I ate cake with the catering staff and watched my family celebrate in blissful ignorance of the bomb I'd just detonated, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, the satisfaction of standing up for myself. But the evening wasn't over yet. I had one more move to make, and this one was going to be even more devastating than the first. I didn't have to wait long for the fireworks to start. Despite turning off my phone, I could see the exact moment Marcus received my email. He was at table 1, chatting with Robert Chen, when his phone buzzed. He glanced at it casually, then did a double take that would have been comical if it weren't so satisfying. His face went through a remarkable transformation: confusion, realization, panic, and finally, pure rage. He whispered something urgent to Jessica, who immediately pulled out her own phone. Within seconds, she was frantically typing, probably trying to reach me. But I wasn't done yet. From my kitchen vantage point, I watched Robert Chen's phone light up with what I could only assume were emergency calls from his business partners. The 3-year marketing contract I just torpedoed wasn't just valuable to my company, it was critical to Pacific Northwest Construction's expansion timeline. Without our marketing expertise, their West Coast launch would be delayed by months, possibly derailed entirely. Maria had been watching the drama unfold with the keen eye of someone who'd worked enough family events to recognize when things were about to explode. "Honey, you might want to think about making your exit soon," she advised kindly. "That boy of yours is looking like he's about to come back here with some strong words." She was right. Marcus had stood up from table 1 and was scanning the room with the determination of a man on a mission. But instead of heading straight for the kitchen, he made a beeline for our parents' table. I watched him lean down and have what appeared to be an increasingly animated conversation with Mom and Dad, their faces cycling through confusion, disbelief, and growing alarm. That's when I made my second power move of the evening. I reopened my laptop and logged into my business banking account. With a few keystrokes, I initiated the reversal of several recent transactions. The $3,000 I'd paid for the wedding favors, reversed. The $1,500 contribution to the honeymoon fund, reversed. The $800 I'd spent on that surprise champagne service for the bridal party, reversed. The only payment I left untouched was my actual wedding gift check, because unlike the family that had humiliated me, I wasn't petty enough to take back a genuine wedding present. But every other helpful contribution I'd made to their perfect day? Gone. My phone, despite being silenced, was lighting up like a Christmas tree with incoming calls and messages. Through the translucent kitchen doors, I could see the chaos escalating in the main dining room. Robert Chen was now on his phone, pacing near the windows with the intense focus of a CEO dealing with a business crisis. Linda had joined the increasingly frantic conversation at my parents' table. That's when Jessica herself appeared in the kitchen doorway, still wearing her wedding dress but with her perfect composure finally cracking. "Sarah, we need to talk. Right now." I looked up from my laptop calmly. "I'm sorry, are you sure you want to talk to me here? I mean, this is where you put me because I'm not important enough for the main dining room." Jessica's face flushed red. "Don't be dramatic. This is about business, not personal feelings." "Actually," I said, closing my laptop and standing up, "this is entirely about personal feelings. Your family's feelings about me, specifically. You can't just destroy Dad's business relationship because you're upset about a seating chart." The words hung in the air between us like a slap. A seating chart. She was still minimizing what they'd done to me, still treating my humiliation as a minor inconvenience rather than a deliberate act of cruelty. "Jessica," I said quietly, "you seated your neighbors in the main dining room. People who don't even know your husband. But his sister, the person who helped pay for your wedding, who coached your sister's speech, who's been nothing but supportive of your relationship, gets banished to eat with the catering staff." It wasn't personal. It was completely personal, I interrupted. "Your mother told the wedding planner I work in hospitality and requested to be near the kitchen. She lied about my profession to justify treating me like hired help. You all laughed about how I'd fit right in with the service staff because I'm always trying to be helpful." Jessica's face went pale. She hadn't realized I knew about the conversations. "And the worst part," I continued, "is that Marcus knew. He knew for a week that you were planning to humiliate me, and he said nothing. He told you I was a pushover who wouldn't cause problems no matter how badly you treated me." "Sarah, please," Jessica said, and for the first time, I heard genuine desperation in her voice. "Dad's company needs that contract. You're talking about people's jobs, their livelihoods." "I'm talking about consequences," I replied. "Your family made a choice to treat me as disposable. Now you're learning that I'm not as disposable as you thought." That's when Marcus finally appeared, pushing past Jessica into the kitchen. His face was red with anger and alcohol, his carefully styled hair disheveled from running his hands through it. "Sarah, what the fuck do you think you're doing?" The catering staff around us went silent, clearly uncomfortable with the escalating family drama in their workspace. Maria stepped protectively closer to me. "I'm eating cake," I said mildly. Maria made sure I got a nice piece, even though apparently I don't deserve to eat in the same room as everyone else. "Don't give me that shit," Marcus snapped. "You just cost Robert millions of dollars because you're throwing a tantrum about where you're sitting." A tantrum. After 32 years of accommodating his needs, supporting his dreams, and subsidizing his lifestyle, my brother was calling my response to systematic humiliation a tantrum. "Marcus," I said, standing up to face him directly, "let me explain what happened here tonight. Your wife's family decided that your successful, financially independent sister was somehow less worthy of respect than random neighbors and college friends who barely know you. They lied to vendors about my profession, made jokes about me behind my back, and seated me with the catering staff like I was part of the hired help. It's just a fucking seat, Sarah." "No," I said, my voice rising for the first time all evening, "it's not just a seat. It's a symbol of how little you all value me as a person. And you know what the really pathetic part is? I've been enabling this treatment for years by always being accommodating, always being understanding, always putting everyone else's feelings before my own." Marcus's face twisted with frustration. "So you decided to destroy an innocent man's business to make a point?" "Innocent?" I laughed bitterly. Robert Chen's wife orchestrated this humiliation. She lied about my profession, manipulated the seating arrangements, and convinced everyone that I deserved to be treated like hired help. His daughter turned my professional success into a reason to exclude me from my own brother's wedding celebration. There's nothing innocent about any of this. "You're being ridiculous," Jessica interjected, her wedding dress rustling as she stepped forward. "Dad had nothing to do with the seating arrangements." "Your father married your mother," I replied coolly. "He raised you. He sat at that table all evening without once asking where the groom's sister was. His values created the family culture that made tonight possible. So no, Jessica, he's not innocent." That's when our parents finally made their appearance, pushing through the kitchen doors with the frantic energy of people trying to contain a disaster. Mom's face was streaked with tears, her carefully applied makeup ruined. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years in the past hour. "Sarah, honey," Mom said, reaching for me with trembling hands, "please tell me there's been some misunderstanding. Please tell me you didn't really cancel that contract." I stepped back from her touch. "There's no misunderstanding, Mom. I canceled a $4.8 million business relationship because the client's family thinks your daughter is worth less than random neighbors. But it's just seating arrangements, Dad protested, echoing Marcus's words. Surely we can work this out like adults. Adults? I repeated, feeling 20 years of resentment finally boiling over. Adults don't lie to wedding planners about their daughter-in-law's profession to justify humiliating her. Adults don't seat the groom's sister with the catering staff while giving premium seats to people who don't even know the couple. Adults don't laugh about how their family member will fit right in with the service industry because she's always trying to be helpful. Mom's face crumpled. We never meant for you to feel. You never meant for me to find out, I corrected. There's a difference. You all knew exactly how this would make me feel, which is why you conspired to keep it from me until it was too late to object. Robert Chin appeared in the kitchen doorway, his phone still pressed to his ear, his face grim with the realization that his evening had just turned into a business nightmare. He ended his call and approached our group with the measured steps of a man trying to control his temper. Ms. Mitchell, he said formally, I believe we need to discuss this situation privately. Actually, Mr. Chen, I think this situation is exactly as private as it needs to be. Your family made their feelings about me very public tonight. I'm simply responding in kind. My wife tells me there was some confusion about the seating arrangements. There was no confusion, I interrupted. Your wife deliberately arranged for me to be seated in the kitchen. She told the wedding planner I work in hospitality and requested the placement. She's also been telling people that I volunteered to help coordinate with the catering staff during dinner service. None of that was confusion, Mr. Chen. That was calculation. Robert's jaw tightened as he processed this information. I could see him doing rapid mental calculations, not just about the financial impact of losing my company's services, but about the family dynamics that had created this crisis. Sarah, he said, his voice taking on the reasonable tone of a skilled negotiator, I understand you're upset, and perhaps you have valid reasons to be. But surely we can separate personal feelings from business relationships. My company has nothing to do with wedding planning decisions. Your company has everything to do with the values and character of its leadership, I replied. And tonight I learned exactly what kind of values your family prioritizes. Those values are incompatible with my company's standards. You're talking about destroying years of successful partnership over one evening's misunderstanding. I'm talking about ending a relationship that should never have continued once I understood the kind of people I was dealing with. That's when Linda Chen finally made her appearance, having clearly been summoned by the increasingly desperate phone calls circulating through the wedding reception. She swept into the kitchen with the indignant energy of a woman who was absolutely certain she was in the right. Sarah Mitchell, she said sharply, I cannot believe you would be so petty as to drag business into personal family matters. The sheer audacity of her statement left me momentarily speechless. She had orchestrated my humiliation, lied about my profession, and turned my helpful nature into a punchline, and now she was calling me petty for responding to it. Mrs. Chen, I said, my voice deadly calm, you told the wedding planner that I work in hospitality. You suggested I be seated near the kitchen so I could observe the service flow. You told people I had volunteered to help coordinate with the catering staff. None of those things were true. Linda's face flushed, but she held her ground. We were trying to find a solution that worked for everyone. The main dining room was completely full. You seated your neighbors in the main dining room. People who have never met Marcus. But his sister gets banished to the kitchen. We had to make difficult choices about space allocation. You made choices about who you considered worthy of basic respect and dignity. And you decided I wasn't. That's not, Linda started, but I cut her off. Mrs. Chen, 3 hours ago, I thought you were a woman of character who had raised a daughter worthy of my brother. Now I know you're someone who orchestrates the humiliation of family members for sport and lies to service providers to justify it. That change in my understanding of your character has made it impossible for me to continue doing business with your family in any capacity. You can't punish my husband's business for personal disagreements. I can absolutely refuse to do business with people whose values conflict with mine. And your family's values. Treating successful women as threats, lying to justify cruel behavior, prioritizing appearances over basic human decency, those values are completely incompatible with my company's standards. Robert stepped forward, his face grave. Ms. Mitchell, whatever happened tonight, there are 37 employees at my company whose jobs depend on the projects your firm manages. Surely you can see that they don't deserve to suffer for family disagreements. It was a good argument, and under different circumstances, it might have given me pause. But I was past the point of being manipulated by guilt. Mr. Chen, your employees deserve leadership that demonstrates integrity and good judgment. If your family's behavior tonight is representative of your company's values, then perhaps they'd be better served by leadership that treats all people with basic respect and dignity. This is insane, Marcus exploded. You're destroying people's lives over hurt feelings. I'm exercising my right to choose who I do business with, I replied. Something your new family clearly doesn't understand, since they seem to think they can treat people however they want without consequences. Sarah, please, Mom tried again, can't we just sit down and talk about this reasonably? Mom, we're past the point of reasonable discussion. That ship sailed when you all decided to humiliate me publicly and then gaslight me about it when I objected. That's when Jessica made her final desperate play. What if we change the seating arrangements right now? What if we move you to the family table? The offer hung in the air like a lifeline they were all desperately hoping I'd grab. But it was too little, too late, and we all knew it. Jessica, I said sadly, you can't unsay the things your family said about me. You can't undo the planning meetings where you all laughed about putting me in the kitchen. You can't take back the lies your mother told to justify treating me like hired help. Moving me to a different table now doesn't erase the fact that you all fundamentally don't respect me as a person. But the contract, Robert started. The contract is done, I said firmly. And so is this conversation. I picked up my purse and laptop bag, nodded gratefully to Maria and the catering staff who had shown me more kindness than my own family, and walked toward the kitchen exit. Sarah, wait. Marcus called after me. Where are you going? I turned back one last time, looking at the collection of people who had shaped my understanding of family loyalty for 32 years. I'm going home, Marcus. To start planning the rest of my life with people who actually value me. You can't just leave. Watch me. And I walked out of the kitchen, through the main dining room where the remaining wedding guests were pretending not to notice the family drama exploding around them, and into the parking lot where my car waited like a promise of freedom. I didn't go straight home. Instead, I drove to my office building and let myself into the 20th floor space that housed Pinnacle Strategies. The Portland skyline glittered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, and for the first time all evening, I felt like I could breathe properly. My phone had been buzzing nonstop during the drive, but I'd left it in my purse, unwilling to deal with the inevitable barrage of angry calls and guilt-laden messages. Whatever chaos I'd unleashed at the wedding, I wasn't ready to engage with it yet. I needed time to process what I'd done and, more importantly, to plan my next moves. Because this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I poured myself a glass of wine from the bottle I kept in my office for late-night strategy sessions and settled into my desk chair. The first thing I did was open my laptop and begin documenting everything that had happened tonight, creating a detailed timeline of events from the moment I'd arrived at the venue to my dramatic exit from the kitchen. If this situation escalated, and given the money involved, it absolutely would, I wanted a clear record of exactly what had transpired. As I typed, I found myself marveling at the sheer audacity of what my family had orchestrated. The more I thought about it, the more calculated their cruelty became apparent. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision or an innocent oversight. This was a deliberate campaign to put me in my place, executed with military precision and justified with lies and manipulation. But they'd made one critical error in their planning: they'd assumed I would just take it. They'd built their entire strategy around my historical pattern of accommodation and conflict avoidance. They'd never considered what would happen if I decided to stop being accommodating. Around midnight, I finally turned my phone back on. The screen immediately lit up with 63 missed calls, 47 text messages, and 17 voicemails. I scrolled through the caller list: Marcus, Jessica, both my parents, Linda Chen, Robert Chen, even Amy, Jessica's sister who had tried to warn me earlier. I started with the voicemails, playing them in chronological order to track the evolution of their panic. The first few were from Marcus, progressing from confusion to anger to outright rage. "Sarah, what the fuck is wrong with you? Call me back right now, became you've lost your goddamn mind. Do you have any idea what you've done? And finally, you selfish bitch, you're going to destroy Jessica's father's business because you're mad about a fucking chair." Mom's messages followed a different trajectory, from tearful pleading to maternal guilt manipulation. "Honey, please call me back. We can work this out. Family is more important than business." Then, "Sarah Elizabeth, your behavior tonight was completely unacceptable. You've embarrassed this entire family. And finally, I don't understand how I raised a daughter who could be so cruel to innocent people." But it was Robert Chen's voicemail that really caught my attention. His message was professional, controlled, and absolutely furious. "Ms. Mitchell, I've spent the evening reviewing our contracts and consulting with my legal team. I hope you understand that your actions tonight will have serious professional consequences beyond our immediate business relationship. The Portland business community is smaller than you think, and word travels fast about consultants who make emotional decisions that harm their clients. I suggest you reconsider your position before this situation becomes irreversible." A threat. Robert Chen was threatening to damage my professional reputation unless I backed down. I smiled and reached for my phone. If Robert wanted to play hardball, he was about to learn that I'd been playing in a much bigger league than he realized. My first call was to Margaret Fitzgerald, the CEO of Cascade Holdings, one of the largest investment firms in the Pacific Northwest. Margaret and I had developed a strong professional relationship over the past 2 years, and her company had been quietly courting me for months about a potential partnership that would triple my firm's revenue. "Sarah? It's midnight on a Saturday. This better be important." "Margaret, it's important. Are you still interested in that partnership we discussed?" "Of course, but why are you calling about this now?" "Because I just freed up $4.8 million worth of capacity in my client roster, and I want to know how quickly we can move on expanding our relationship." There was a pause. "You freed up $4.8 million in capacity? Tonight?" "Long story, but yes. I terminated my contract with Pacific Northwest Construction, effective immediately. I'm now in a position to take on significantly more work with Cascade Holdings." Margaret's interest was palpable even through the phone. "Sarah, that kind of capacity shift doesn't happen overnight. What's going on?" I gave her the abbreviated version: family conflict leading to an irreconcilable difference in values with a major client. I didn't mention the wedding details, but I made it clear that this was a permanent decision based on character issues rather than business disagreements. "Well," Margaret said thoughtfully, "their loss is our gain. Can you be in my office Monday morning at 8? I want to discuss accelerating our timeline significantly." "I'll be there." My second call was to David Park, the managing partner at Portland's most prestigious business law firm. David had handled several contracts for my company, and I trusted his judgment implicitly. "David, sorry to call so late, but I need some legal advice." "Sarah, what's going on?" I explained the evening's events in detail, including Robert Chen's threatening voicemail. David listened without interruption, occasionally making notes that I could hear through the phone. "Okay," he said finally, "first things first, you're absolutely within your rights to terminate that contract. The morality clause you mentioned gives you broad discretion, and Robert's threat to damage your reputation could actually constitute business interference if he follows through on it." "What about his legal team?" David laughed. "Sarah, you're overthinking this. He's upset and trying to intimidate you, but he doesn't have any legal recourse. You fulfilled your contractual obligations through the termination date, and you're providing appropriate transition support." His wife's behavior at a family event isn't legally relevant to your business relationship, but it's certainly valid grounds for exercising your termination rights. So I'm in the clear? Completely. In fact, if Robert does try to damage your reputation through the business community, you'd have grounds for a defamation suit. I'd recommend documenting everything, all the voicemails, text messages, any written communications. If this escalates, you want a paper trail. My third call was to James, my business partner, who answered on the first ring despite the late hour. Sarah, thank God. I've been worried sick. Are you okay? I'm fine, James. Better than fine, actually. I'm free. Free from what? Free from a family that treated me like garbage and a client relationship that was built on a foundation of disrespect. Tomorrow, I'm going to tell you about a conversation I just had with Margaret Fitzgerald that's going to change everything for our company. The Cascade Holdings deal? The Cascade Holdings partnership. Margaret wants to accelerate our timeline. We could be looking at tripling our revenue within 6 months. There was a long pause. Sarah, are you sure you're thinking clearly? You've had a traumatic evening, and maybe. James, I interrupted, I've never been thinking more clearly in my life. For years, I've been accommodating people who didn't deserve it, accepting treatment I should never have tolerated, and prioritizing other people's comfort over my own self-respect. Tonight, that stops. But your family? My family made their choice. They chose to humiliate me publicly, lie about my profession, and treat me like hired help at my own brother's wedding. They gambled that I would just take it quietly, like I always have. They lost that bet. By the time I finished making calls, it was nearly 2 a.m. I gathered my things and headed home, feeling lighter than I had in years. The weight of constantly managing other people's feelings and expectations had been lifted from my shoulders, and I was beginning to understand what it felt like to live authentically. But as I pulled into my driveway, I noticed a familiar car parked across the street. Marcus's BMW sat under the streetlight like a predator waiting for its moment to strike. I sat in my car for a moment, considering my options. I could call the police and report him for trespassing or stalking. I could drive away and come back later. Or I could face him head-on and finish what had started in that kitchen. I chose confrontation. Marcus got out of his car as I approached my front door, and even in the dim streetlight, I could see that he'd been drinking heavily since the reception ended. His wedding tuxedo was wrinkled and stained, his bow tie hanging loose around his neck. Sarah, we need to talk. No, Marcus, we really don't. You've said everything I need to hear about how you view me and our relationship. Look, I know tonight got out of hand, but you can't punish innocent people for family drama. Innocent people? I laughed bitterly. Marcus, your wife's family systematically planned my humiliation. They lied to vendors, manipulated seating arrangements, and made jokes about my profession. And you knew about it for a week without saying anything to me. There are no innocent people in this situation. Okay, fine, maybe the seating thing was handled badly. But you can't destroy Robert's business over it. I'm not destroying anything. I'm simply choosing not to do business with people who lack basic integrity and respect for others. Marcus stepped closer, and I could smell the alcohol on his breath. Sarah, please. Jessica is crying her eyes out. Her dad might lose major contracts because of this. You're destroying their family. They destroyed our family first, Marcus. They just didn't think there would be any consequences. What do you want? He asked desperately. What will it take to fix this? I looked at my brother, really looked at him, and realized that this conversation was pointless. He still didn't understand what he'd done wrong. He still saw my response as disproportionate rather than recognizing the cruelty that had prompted it. Marcus, I want you to leave my property and never contact me again unless you're ready to acknowledge what really happened tonight and offer a genuine apology for your role in it. Are you serious? You're going to disown your own brother? I'm going to stop accepting treatment that diminishes my worth as a human being. If that means disowning you, then yes, I'm prepared to do that. Marcus stared at me for a long moment, his face cycling through various emotions. Finally, he settled on cold anger. Fine, Sarah. But don't come crawling back when you realize what you've given up. Family is all you really have in this world, and you just threw yours away over hurt feelings. No, Marcus. I just learned the difference between family and people who share my DNA. He turned and walked back to his car without another word, leaving me standing in my driveway with the profound satisfaction of someone who had finally stood up for herself. But I knew this wasn't over. The wedding night confrontations were just the beginning. Come Monday morning, the real consequences of my actions would begin to unfold, and I was going to make sure every single one of them counted. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new corner office on the 32nd floor of the Cascade Holdings building, looking out over a Portland skyline that seemed brighter and more promising than ever before. The partnership with Margaret Fitzgerald had exceeded even my most optimistic projections, and Pinnacle Strategies was now the exclusive marketing partner for one of the West Coast's most influential investment firms. The irony wasn't lost on me that losing my biggest client had led to gaining an even bigger one, but that's exactly what had happened. Margaret later told me that my willingness to walk away from a lucrative but ethically compromised relationship had actually convinced her that I was exactly the kind of partner Cascade Holdings needed. But the real satisfaction came from watching the domino effect of consequences that had followed my wedding night decision. The first domino fell within a week of the wedding. Robert Chen's company, already struggling with cash flow issues that I hadn't been aware of, found themselves unable to quickly replace the marketing expertise my firm had provided. Their West Coast expansion, which had been carefully coordinated with our campaign strategies, collapsed spectacularly when they missed key launch deadlines and failed to establish market presence in 3 major cities. Within a month, Pacific Northwest Construction had lost 2 additional major contracts due to their inability to demonstrate marketing competency to potential clients. The company that had once boasted about their growth trajectory was suddenly fighting to maintain basic operations. But that wasn't the end of Robert's troubles. It turned out that threatening a successful businesswoman's professional reputation has consequences in the tight-knit Portland business community, just not the ones he'd expected. When word spread about why I'd terminated our contract, other business leaders began questioning Robert's judgment and character. 3 of his board members, all women who had experienced similar treatment in professional settings, quietly began exploring options to replace him as CEO. Linda Chen's social standing took an even bigger hit. The story of the wedding seating arrangement spread through their social circle like wildfire, and Linda found herself increasingly isolated from the charitable organizations and social clubs that had defined her identity. Apparently, publicly humiliating family members wasn't the kind of behavior that Portland's social elite found acceptable. Jessica's reaction to the unfolding consequences was perhaps the most revealing of all. Instead of acknowledging her family's role in creating the crisis, she doubled down on victimhood, telling anyone who would listen that I had destroyed her father's business out of jealous spite. This strategy backfired spectacularly when Amy, her younger sister, finally found her courage and began correcting the record wherever Jessica spread her revisionist history. Amy had been horrified by her family's treatment of me, and watching Jessica try to rewrite the narrative was apparently the final straw. She began sharing the real story, the planning meetings where they'd laughed about putting me in the kitchen, Linda's lies to the wedding vendors, Marcus's agreement that I was too accommodating to cause problems. Amy's insider perspective made it impossible for Jessica to maintain her victim narrative. The marriage itself became increasingly strained as the financial and social consequences mounted. Marcus, who had built his identity around being the golden child in a successful family, found himself married into a family whose reputation was in shambles and whose primary breadwinner was facing potential bankruptcy. The stress brought out the worst in both of them, and according to mutual friends, their relationship became a cycle of blame and recrimination. Marcus himself tried to reach out several times during those first few months, but his attempts at reconciliation were always couched in terms of family obligation rather than genuine remorse. He wanted me to restore the business relationship to help save the family, but he never acknowledged what his family had done to me or offered a real apology for his role in it. The final communication I received from him was a text message sent on Christmas Eve: "I hope you're happy with what you've accomplished. Jessica's parents are getting divorced, her dad's company is failing, and our marriage is falling apart. Was your hurt feelings really worth destroying so many lives?" I didn't respond, but I did save the message as a perfect example of how someone can be faced with clear consequences for their actions and still refuse to accept responsibility for causing them. The most unexpected development came from an entirely different direction. Maria, the catering supervisor who had shown me such kindness on that wedding night, reached out to me through my business website 3 months after the wedding. It turned out that Maria had been running her own small catering business on the side, and the contrast between how my family had treated me versus how I'd treated her staff that night had made a lasting impression on her. She was looking for marketing help to expand her business, and she specifically wanted to work with someone who demonstrated genuine respect for working people. What started as a small consulting project blossomed into something much bigger. Maria's catering became one of our most successful small business partnerships, and her company's growth story became a case study that attracted other entrepreneurs who valued integrity and authentic relationships. Through Maria, I also met David, her business partner's brother, who managed operations for a sustainable farming cooperative. David was everything my previous relationships hadn't been: someone who valued my professional success rather than feeling threatened by it, who understood the importance of treating all people with dignity regardless of their job title or social status. We'd been dating for 4 months now, and he had already proven himself in ways that my family never had. When I told him the story of the wedding night, his reaction wasn't to minimize my feelings or suggest I'd overreacted. Instead, he'd been quietly furious on my behalf and had made it clear that anyone who treated me poorly wouldn't be welcome in his life. You know, reflecting on this whole journey has me thinking about what family really means and when it's okay to walk away from toxic relationships, even when they're blood relations. Have you ever had to choose between your own self-respect and keeping peace with family members who didn't treat you well? How do you balance loyalty with self-preservation when the people who should love you most are the ones causing you pain? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to cut toxic family members out of your life? How did you handle the guilt and social pressure to forgive and forget? And if you've made it this far in my story, please hit that like button, because sharing these experiences helps all of us feel less alone when we're dealing with difficult family dynamics. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to hear more stories about standing up for yourself and finding your real family among the people who actually value and respect you. Sometimes the family you choose is so much better than the family you're born into. The truth is, losing my birth family was painful, but it opened up space in my life for relationships built on mutual respect and genuine care. My business is thriving, my personal life is happier than it's ever been, and I wake up every day knowing that I'm surrounded by people who value me for who I am, not what I can do for them. Share this video with anyone who might need to hear that it's okay to prioritize your own well-being, even when it means disappointing people who should know better. Like and subscribe if you believe that respect and dignity aren't negotiable, no matter who's asking you to compromise them. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, sometimes the best revenge is simply living well and surrounding yourself with people who recognize your worth. Life is too short to spend it with people who make you feel small, even if they happen to share your DNA. Until next time, remember that you deserve to be treated with basic human decency, and anyone who can't provide that doesn't deserve a place in your life, family or not.